All right, you are now good to go.
Just waiting for Ferg.
Just while we've got a couple of seconds, could I, just to welcome everyone, my name is Cal McLeod, Deputy Mayor of this fine district. Just as one of the Zoom protocols, if I could ask people to mute their mics while they're not actually speaking, it'll just save any background hisses and bells and whistles. And we'll get underway just as soon as Councillor Ferg gets, because we need 3 members to form the panel.
Okay, is Ferg in the waiting room?
They are coming in.
Yeah, so you're the host now, Campbell.
Yep, they should now be here.
Yep, right. Okay, so it is now just shortly after 10 a.m. and so I welcome you all to this hearing of submissions on the Dog Control Bylaw and Dog Control Policy 2020. I am Jane Robertson and I am the Governance Advisor, so I'll be taking minutes of this hearing. The reason that I'm starting the hearing is that although we have 3 councillors here who will hear the submissions, at this point they haven't determined who will chair the meeting, so I'll ask them now to confirm who will chair and to resolve. So passing over to any of the councillors.
Can you not hear us, Ferg?
Ferg, can you hear us? No, I can't.
Doesn't sound like he's got the audio.
Okay.
Perhaps you better.
Any ideas, Campbell?
Not sure, to be honest. It's worked for him in the past. I would imagine he just has to make sure that when he joins, it should ask, does he connect via computer audio or another device that he's using? So he just needs to pick the correct one.
And which is that?
Probably computer audio.
Yeah, okay. Right.
He's coming back now. Hey Ferg, if you go down to the bottom left to the mute icon, there should be a little kind of drop down arrow there. Perhaps take a look at that and see whether your select a microphone and select a speaker are, try changing those options and see if that has any effect.
Just a quick apology to everyone that's waiting. Who'd have thought that the radio DJ would have a problem connecting via the technology? The wonders of technology. It's a beautiful thing when it works, and when it's not, it's one of the most frustrating things. I took solace from the other day when I was working at the cinema, and a girl who's 22 ended up swearing at a computer, and I thought, my God, thank God it's not just boomers and Gen X that do that. So hopefully we'll get going soon. Again, apologies for the delay. Campbell, I think that's Ferg back in the waiting room again.
Yeah, he's in here now.
Ah, what a circus.
There you go. Woo.
Apologies.
It's good to hear your dulcet tones, mate.
Yeah, apologies about that. Coming back into work and things have changed and Wi-Fi passwords have changed. And so a couple of hurried, frantic phone calls to Christchurch Tech. So done. Thank you. Sorry, apologies.
Okay, no, that's all good. So we'll kick off again. So welcome to this hearing of submissions. And I would invite the councillors to decide amongst themselves who will chair the meeting.
Thank you, Jane. I'd like to nominate Councillor Callum McLeod as chair, please.
I'm happy to second that, Ferg. Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks, Heath.
Okay, so I will pass over to Councillor McLeod. And just letting you know that there are also just some staff members who are joining the meeting as well, principally for training purposes, and just want to check that you are okay with that.
Fine by me.
Yep, good by me.
Yep, fine.
Okay, so so they are Jade Weinbrecht, Claire Tompkins and Ashlyn Wadley. So they are here as well. And the other staff are Carrie Edgerton, who's the author of the report, and Anthony Hall, who is the Manager Regulatory.
Wicked. Well, thanks very much. Thanks to one and all for turning up. Again, apologies about the delay, but these things happen. Just to confirm, this is a duly constituted hearing. It was confirmed by a resolution at the full council meeting on the 30th of January 2020 that the councillors appoint councillors Copeland, Ferguson, McLeod and Miller to hear and consider the submissions of the QLDC Dog Control Bylaw 2020 and the Queenstown Dog Control Policy 2020. The Councillor Miller's not with us. Thankfully, Councillor Ferguson finally made it, and Councillor Copeland is here. This is a formal hearing, and it has a formal outcome. But please feel free. It's trying to be as relaxed as Zoom will allow us to be, and we will listen to the proposal put forward by council and then hear from any submitters that want to speak. Anyone can, the hearings panel can ask questions of the submitters, but it's, I would respectfully ask anyone that's submitting not to interject. It's not there's no right to cross-examination. It's outside of the scope of this hearing. That's only members of the hearing panel can actually direct questions to the speakers. So that would be appreciated if you could. At the end of the hearing, we'll adjourn the hearing and there'll be a deliberations phase and we'll make a decision, and at the end of that, anyone who has submitted will be notified of the outcome of this hearing. Wicked. So as is, can I ask if either Carrie or Anthony have got anything further to add to the report? Perhaps starting with Carrie and then on to you, Anthony.
Thank you. And just want to thank everybody for coming today. We're genuinely keen to hear what everybody has to say. Certainly under these difficult circumstances, we appreciate you guys taking the time to come and speak with us. So there's three things that we're looking at today or hearing about today. First is the proposed change to Queenstown Hill. We're proposing to prohibit dogs in that location. It was previously dogs on lead. The second area is Matakari Park, where we're proposing dogs to be on lead. Prior to now, it has been dogs are allowed off lead in that location. And the third location is Buckingham Street in Arrowtown, where we are proposing that dogs are permitted. Previously, they have been prohibited in that area. That's all from me.
Thanks, Kerry. Have you got anything to add to that, Anto?
No, just to reiterate Kerry's comments that we appreciate everyone taking the time out of their schedules, particularly in the light of the current situation, to provide information around the proposed bylaw. These things, they are in place for a significant length of time, so it is very good to have feedback from people around them. And the last bylaw, from working with it for the last 5-6 years, has been reasonably effective, but it is certainly time for the review, and it's time for a few adjustments and updates. So just thought I'd point out that the last one has been good, but there's always opportunity for improvement. And again, appreciate everyone's time. Thanks.
Thanks, Aaron. Just before we head on, I'd just like to, this is my 3rd time doing the dog control bylaw, and I'd just like to thank Kerry and Anto for their work. I actually think that the pre-engagement was a very novel innovation this time round, and it has probably helped in a lot of the way we got this thing out. I think what was the final total of submissions was around 9,800 submissions. I think the first time I did it, it was probably 6 times that. So that's a positive reflection that we're, as Anta said, the law that's being replaced, the bylaw that's being replaced, stood us in good stead, and hopefully so will this one. So now we'll move on to submitters, and on my list of who does what and when, I have Kelvin Middleton first up at, I think it was 5 past, but we're a little bit late. But hey, thanks for your patience, Kelvin. And I would ask you, when you're speaking, obviously to be relatively respectful. This is a formal thing. And also just to, you're allocated 5 minutes, but I think given the situation, we're all relatively comfortable at home. I think we'll maybe give that a bit of leeway. So fire away.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully I won't need any longer than that. For those of you may know me or may not, I'm the owner and operator of Queenstown Hill Station, purely discussing the submission relating to the Queenstown Hill Walkway. A lot of you may or may not be aware, but the top third of that, at least if not more, of that walking track is on our land. It's private property. We have kindly allowed access up through our land for millions of visitors, really. And a number of years ago, I got rung by the council to discuss that they were going to allow dogs on the walkway as part of the bylaw back then. We were adamantly very opposed to it, but in discussions with the council at the time, it was led to believe that within a year that it was going to be trialled and then it was going to be stopped. Here we are 4 years later, trying to stop dogs going up there. We are a working operational farm. We've got over 3,500 sheep on the property. The sheep up the back of that area. It really doesn't take a rocket scientist to know the issues that we've had with regarding dogs, mauling. Many have been publicised, front page in the Mountain Scene, and a large number of that has not. Countless numbers of sheep have been destroyed, but more so it has been the stress and the headache of the dogs being allowed on the property. And simply this will continue if dog access is allowed up the back of the hill. You know, the thing is, once dogs start, and I know that you've tried to say lead only, that has never worked. I've got numerous pictures of dogs up there with no leads. I commend the council. When I've talked to them, they've tried to help and had dog control officers and everyone up there, but you simply just can't control it. The only way to control it is to stop it. Absolutely no dogs up there, and that will save us a huge headache. Hopefully it will save sheep. Ultimately, it will probably save dogs. The thing is, once the dogs go up there with their owners, sadly in this day and the age, the owners are not so kind to their dogs and many are left at home. but they smell. They know the smell. They know the route, and so they'll just go up there with a mate by themselves, or with a mate, and just cause and wreak havoc. So ultimately, what I'm asking is for the dogs to absolutely be denied access up the Queenstown Hill walkway. We want to keep the walkway open. We'd hate to be forced into ways to stop the walkway, but as I say, we're an operational farm. We've got to look after ourselves. We've got to look after our stock. So I hopefully think this should be the easiest decision you can make in your whole meeting today to stop this. Thank you. That's all I've got to say.
Wicked. Thank you very much for that, Kelvin. Any questions, councillors? Ferg, over to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Callum, Mr. Chair. Good to see you, Cal.
You too, Ferg.
You've been the family's been a long time farm owners up there on Queenstown Hill. You talked about sheep are continually being destroyed or attacked. How many sheep do you think? Have you got a rough number of stock that you've lost?
I can describe, sadly, I know dogs more so that have been lost, and it's in the hundreds. And this is over 60 years. So every dog that goes up there can kill anywhere from 3 to 12 sheep. At the moment, a sheep is worth $200. So it's a funny, the worst thing is they don't actually kill the sheep. They'll maul them, and then they'll leave them alive, and then they will die on time. But it's more so the stress for us to know that dogs are up there, stress on the sheep, and it does, it's just a hell of a time for.
What about is the issue? Does it get worse every year? Is it, we know how the population has grown, and we know we're in pretty extraordinary times at the moment. But have you seen the loss of stock, the number of dogs as the community's grown?
Oh, incredibly so. And I mean, we're well aware we're a farm that is right next to a urban area, and that is the risk of being where we are. But there seems to be people, obviously there's numerous more people in the district, which has led to numerous more dogs. And it is an incredibly popular walking track. I understand that, but I'd like to think that there is enough tracks around the district where they can take their dogs rather than have to take them up there on a working property. Because there's been a huge number over the last number of years.
One more question, Mr. Chair, if I'm allowed, please. I haven't been up there for a while myself. Are there possum trapping lines up there?
Yep, we've allowed the predator-free group to be up there, so they're trying to trap any animals as such as possums or rats or stoats. So that's just part of their wee group that we've allowed up there.
So I'd imagine that would be a bit of an issue for dogs that are wandering. You don't want dogs getting in the traps as well, don't you?
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. I mean, I like to think that the traps are pretty safe. However, it's purely comes down to dogs roaming up there. You can't stop them if they get the sniff up there, and they just keep on going. And it's 3,000 acres. It's a big area. We can't police it. And it's a horrible time when you get that call of there's dogs barking up there, or you come across sheep that have been mauled.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Kelvin.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Councillor Copeland, any questions?
No, not for me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for your submission, Kelvin.
Cheers.
Just one question from me, if I may, Kelvin. If you came across a dog that was up there and you witnessed it mauling a sheep, what's the outcome for the dog?
In the past, we have always had shoot on site. No questions asked.
Yep. Thank you. No, it's understandable. I just wanted to make that 100% clear, because it's what we not wanting to predispose any decision, but you could actually be helping the dogs if we depending on how we looked at the outcome.
Yeah.
Thank you for your submission. Great to hear, and enjoy your day.
Thanks, Kelvin.
Now I think the next person up I have is Tamara Wexler. Are you with us, Tamara?
Yes, morning everybody.
Not a
Good
problem.
morning.
Where you go, I'm assuming you've heard all the proceedings up to date. So
Yeah,
again,
yeah,
just ask you
absolutely.
to be respectful and crack on.
Cool, thank you. So I guess my first question is, how can we make Queenstown a more attractive place for people to come and visit, or to come and live here actually? And so I was somebody that did actually move to Queenstown, and a lot of times when I'm out walking my dog, I do look at Queenstown and the tracks that we have, and I say, like, how could you want to live somewhere else when we have all these beautiful places that we can walk? And it's not so much walking on leash or off leash. It's kind of the combination of the two. So I think with Matakauri Park, if we look to have that with on leash walking, then I guess we need to ask the question of, well, are our dogs actually getting socialized? Because we do want all of the dogs in the community. I mean, everyone's case by case, and different owners are more respectful than other owners. But I mean, I've walked that track in the last 4 years, and never have my dogs had a bad. We've never come into a problem with anybody else. But we do know the dogs in the community, and there are dogs that I do see that are on the leash that are maybe a little bit more savage than other dogs, and you come to know that. But in terms of the walk itself, like, it's not the prettiest walk around town, so it doesn't attract a lot of tourists. And I guess if you just wanted to take your dog for a walk on a leash, you might go into town or you might go somewhere else. But to have an option in town where you're not having to get in the car and drive somewhere, and your dog can sniff another dog or have a play with another dog, and it's not kind of causing any harm. So that's sort of the first the area that I wanted to talk about. And then second is Queenstown Hill. Now, I actually think the first part of Queenstown Hill, I'm not talking about the back part of Queenstown Hill, but as an example, when I had some physio treatment, I couldn't actually walk on a flat ground because it was causing problems to my knees. So I needed to have that hill to be able to walk up, just for the muscles. And so Queenstown Hill was a fabulous option where I could actually take the dogs. And again, it comes back to kind of what options are there around downtown that just do provide that hill option. In terms of, people that are not comfortable with dogs around, well, I think that path is quite wide. From my experience with my dogs, the biggest problem that I do have is actually that everyone wants to stop and pat them, and we can't finish a walk, without people wanting to stop and say hello. And I think that's awesome. Like, that's one of the beautiful things about the place that we live, and with all the tourists and just the locals that live here, but yeah, I guess that's my 2 points. So I would like to propose Queenstown Hill, just the first part, being a hill option. Doesn't need to go all the way to the top, doesn't need to go all the way to the basket even. And the other great thing about Queenstown is people call each other out. Like, if you're in an area and you're doing the wrong thing, you'll call out your community members and you will name and shame them on Queenstown Trading, so they won't do it again. And that's kind of my my spiel, I think. Does anyone have any questions?
That's fantastic. Thanks for that, Tamara. I will now ask if Councillor Ferguson or Councillor Copeland. We'll start with Councillor Copeland because he had his finger on the trigger. So,
thanks for your submission, Tammy. Just one quick question: what breed of dogs do you have?
They're actually English Staffies, which it's interesting because they do have that connotation around them of being so fierce, and some people look at them and they go, oh, because it's a sort of from the history of the pit bull, but any dog has that, really. I mean, any dog can be vicious depending on how they've been brought up, and our dogs are they're not like that. But yeah, they're English staffies.
Okay, thank you.
Tammy, thank you for your submission and for speaking to it today. Appreciate that. Just with regards to Matakari Park, when I was made aware that I'd be on the dog control bylaw panel, I went for a walk around there. I'm not a dog owner, but I went for a walk, and certainly you see people with dogs on leads, some without dogs on leads. But what struck me the most, and you look like a responsible dog owner to me, and this is just an observation really, it's not really a question as such, I suppose, but the amount of dog poo
Dog poo. Yeah.
in Matakari Park is staggering.
Yeah.
Which, man,
Yeah.
it's just an observation. As I said, it's not assuming anything. It's just,
Yeah.
I just thought I'd share it with the panel and those that were tuned in. It's, I'd just like to see more responsible owners who take some responsibility around that. But
yeah. So how can we make our dog owners more responsible?
Anto, that might be up to you later, mate.
That
Anyway,
is the $1 million
observations.
question, isn't it?
Yeah. Sorry, that was just the observation, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Tammy.
Not a problem, Ferg. Hey, one question I've got for you, Tamara, if I may, is one of the submitters mentioned that Matakari Park, he had concerns about dogs interacting with wildlife. Have you got any comment on that?
Yeah, because so I have 2 dogs, and when one of my dogs was much younger, she did like to stress out the ducks, and me being a vegan myself, I was not happy with that. So I do the right thing, and when we're near the ducks, I'll put her on the leash, or I'll tell her, and I'll set those boundaries, and she knows that she's going to get in trouble if she stresses out the ducks, because it's her home, it's their home.
There you go. Thanks very much. I have no further questions. And with regards to ducks getting stressed, I think heading into this weekend, the stress will be mounting. Apologies for that little joke to the vegan. But yeah, thank you very much for your submission, and thank you very much for turning up today and speaking to it. Wicked. So moving on, the next submission is Vance and Carol Boyd, and I'm assuming that I'm speaking to Vance. So yep. It's all yours, sir. Where you go.
Yeah, thanks everybody, and nice to see some of the old faces again. You can hear me okay, can you?
Yes, thank you.
Right. Just as an aside, before I start, our interest is mainly to Matakari Park, but I did hear what Kelvin had to say, and I've got to personally say I don't see much place for recreational dog walking on working farms. I fully take his point. I'm not referring to a lower part of Queenstown Hill, but dogs and stock, are problems. Anyway, a bit of background. Our family has owned a dog for the past 50 years. And 33 years of those years have been in Queenstown. We've always had a dog. And I've sort of learned over that time that really there's no such thing as bad dogs, or very rarely, it's bad owners. I also wanted to say that over the years we've been in Queenstown, I've always thought that the Queenstown Lakes policies on dogs and the pragmatic way in which they've been interpreted at times by the dog control officers and the staff involved has been a commendable feature of the environment around here. And although we've never had too much interaction with council, people in the dog owning community have told me tales about how helpful they have been at times. So I don't think there's an anti-dog feeling in council. I think the council staff have got a great job over the years. I've got to say that I was a little bit surprised to see a proposal to restrict carry to on lead only. I'll make the point that at the moment people have the option of having their dog on a lead if they want to have it on a lead, but it's not compulsory in Matakari. I've been walking our dogs around there, and Carol with our dogs as well, for the last 20 years. And I think it's about 20 years. Matakari, of course, arose out of a proposal by Barry Lawrence at the time. And I can't say that, and I can honestly say in 20 years, I've never seen any problems with dogs being walked around there. I've never seen any issues of dogs attacking people or other dogs or anything else to lead me to conclude that it would be or should be an area where they have to be on a lead. I note that the proposal refers on page 11 of the paper you would have read to the Dog Control Act, and the Dog Control Act actually sets out 4 main objectives, and they include the need to minimise danger and distress to people in the community, and conclude with the needs of recognising the exercise, excuse me, exercise and recreational needs of dogs and their owners. And I think in Queenstown, if we look at the town, the areas close to town where dogs can be exercised, we currently have 2 situations mainly. We have the gardens where people can walk dogs on lead only, and we have Matakari Park where people have the option of walking dogs off lead or on lead. Both of those areas are close to the work environment for many people. So they provide an area where people can slip out from work at a lunchtime and take their dog for a walk. And particularly in case of Matakari Park, it's unique in the sense that it's a destinational walk. Most people go around in a loop one direction to the other. It takes about half an hour, and the dogs are able to experience a variety of open grassland area at the start, and of course more confined area on the boardwalk at the end. Dog socialization is a very important part of good dog behavior and a very important part of avoiding attacks by dogs on other dogs and on people. And Matakari Park provides a great opportunity for dogs to be off lead, to do all that sort of sniffing and stuff they like to do, and also to socialise with each other and to socialise with other dog walkers. And as we walk around Matakari Park, invariably you meet people with dogs. It really is a dog area, and principally in my view. And you know, inevitably the dogs will have a run around together. The owners talk about what sort of dog is it and how long have you had it and stuff like that. So it provides a great asset for the community and being able to provide for that sort of interaction with dog people. It's away from livestock apart from the odd goat, and I see that there's a proposal to eliminate some of them. It really is an asset to the area, and it would be a real shame, I think, to restrict that so that we don't have any area close to town where you can take a dog off lead. As I say, at the moment, I think it's really well balanced. We've got the gardens on lead, Matakari Park, optional off lead, on lead. And that seems to me to really fit the objection of, the objectives of the Dog Control Act as set out in your proposal. I noted that there's been about 100 submitters on this, and I actually thought that was quite high for Queenstown because, you know, we've, in my experience here over the years, we've been a bit of a community which has not said much when the opportunity is there, and then as soon as council makes a ruling, having not taken the opportunity to submit, everybody gets up in arms about not being able to do what they wanted to do. So I thought it was actually quite a good muster to get 100 submissions on dog control. And I note that in terms of Matakari Park, about roughly 70 of those are in favour of leaving dogs, having dogs off lead. And of the ones that were taking a different view, a lot of them were neutral, and some seem to be sort of saying they should be on lead really from philosophical reasons rather than anything else. And I didn't see any references anywhere to any evidence that having dogs off lead in Matakari Park has actually caused problems. I didn't see any references to anyone saying that there'd been attacks there or other issues. So I'm sort of wondering, why would we want to suddenly decide that they should be on a lead in Matakari Park when there doesn't seem to be any great evidence to support that idea? And then just finally, I'd say that we've also been through a period of restricted rights. Basically, we haven't had the right to go out and about as much as we would like. We all know the reasons for that. And I think it's really important for the community that we, in this environment, maintain the right to exercise our dogs on or off lead. We have one place to do it locally, and that is Matakari Park. Please let us continue with that. I don't think that it's going to serve a great purpose by making dogs on lead only. Just although it's not part of a deal, dog poo, yes, it has been an issue in the park on the track. I don't know why people don't take a plastic bag and pick it up, but some don't. However, I've got to say the last twice I've been around there, which is sort of since the lockdown has become less of a lockdown, there doesn't seem to be as much dog poo as there was. I'm not sure why, but it's just a fact. I do know in Dunedin, where we take our dog occasionally and walk around areas there, there's actually, the council there has a bit of a doggy do dispenser device at the start of tracks, and you can pull a plastic bag out if you forgot to take one. Some people clearly still don't bother, and that's just people, but maybe that's something to be considered if the council thought the dog poo problem is an issue. But yeah, you do have to watch where you walk at times around here. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vance. Just some excellent points well made. Just with regard to the submitters, just wanted to point out it is the Queenstown Lakes District that we're dealing with, so it's not just Queenstown that's submitted.
Yeah.
And one thing you can always count on with the good people of the Upper Clutha is they will submit. Queenstown not so much, and I don't think we've heard from anyone from our town in the last 50 years. But no, joking. I will now a couple of points as well from me. One was one of the submitters. I made a note of the point you made about the leash and off leash. Is Sarah Ledbetter who said an off leash under control dog is preferable to an on leash menace, and I think that's a very valid point to bear in mind. I will now hand it over to questions. Any questions from councillors for Vance?
Not from me, Mr. Chair. I heard every word that Vance said, and I'm pretty comfortable at the moment. Thank you. Good to see you again, Vance.
Yeah, you too, Ferg.
And that's the same for me, Mr. Chair. It was a very good, well thought out submission. Thanks, Vance.
Wicked. I think if that is the case, that takes us to the end of the submitters that want to speak. Is that correct, Jane? Yep, sweet. So one couple of wee points I just wanted to make just before we adjourn the hearing, just while we're in public, is this is, as I say, the third time I've been through the situation of the dog control bylaw. Reading all the submissions, as I could assure everyone that we have, there's a constant recurring theme for me that there's a lot of people want to ask for, or seem to ask for, dog parks, dog exercise park. And I've done research every time we've done this, and there's one, the latest one was from an Australian website called dogsonline.com, which did a survey to ask yes or no for dog parks, and it was an 80% return that said no because of the significant evidence that creates distress for dogs. And I'd just like to ask staff members, if at all possible, that we could maybe get, I'm a lay person, I've done a bit of research, but if potentially look at some sort of statement from a veterinary professional to potentially back that up, because it's been raised by a lot of submitters, always seems to get raised, but the evidence would seem to suggest that they're not such a great idea. And that, I think, was from me, is everything. I'd just like to hand over to Carrie and Anthony and see if they've got anything to add in response to any of the submission points that were raised. And this time I'll probably start with Anto, or Carrie. Carrie, you've got unmute, so you get to go first.
There's nothing I need to ask of any of the submitters. They were all quite clear. So thank you for your time to speak with us today. I guess if any of the panel have any questions that they want, I guess, clarified from us as well.
Sure. And anything from you, Anthony, before I turn to the councillors?
No, I'm in a similar position of Carrie. I certainly appreciate the submissions. I certainly understand everyone's submission, and I think everyone's made some good points, and they are very well thought out. In previous years, I'm probably similar to Callum, where I've heard a few of these different bylaws now over the years, and unfortunately, in some circumstances, I've had to listen to submissions that have been significantly off topic and not on point, but your guys' ones have certainly considered the information in the report. So I do thank you for taking the time to read through it.
Wicked. So any points of clarification from either the council panel members? Ferg?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a wee question on the back of Mr. Middleton's submission, Anto. I, a bit like Callum, have been involved in a couple of these now, but my ears did prick up when Kelvin mentioned about the trial that was supposed to be happening and then stopped, and then 4 years later, here we are. You got any clarification around that as to why? I can remember I went back into some of the other books. I'd probably see my notes, but it did raise a flag, which is pretty rare for me up there, around what happened back then.
I don't want to sort of talk in a context of without having the full facts, but when a bylaw does take place, it does allow the opportunity for people to exercise the powers within the bylaw. So in the circumstance of the bylaw last time allowing a on-lead restriction did allow for that. There has been restrictions come in earlier than this formal process that we're working through now to try and encourage people to not go up there because of the issues that have been exhibited from dog owners. There's been multiple bits of media go out to the community, say, comply or you're going to lose your rare opportunity to walk your dogs through council land onto private property. And as Calvin's pointed out, there has been significant non-compliance despite giving the community the opportunity to comply. And then we're at this position today to formalise what has been the council trying to encourage people to stop going up there, but we do need the formal acknowledgement to stop people going up there through this bylaw process.
Great, thank you.
Sorry to butt in, Ferg and Anthony. I think the issue has been people are unsure where the council walkway starts and finishes and when the private land starts and finishes. There is no way people will respect any rule that says you can walk on the council land, but all of a sudden you're halfway up the hill and then a sign says there is private land, don't go any further with your animals. That just simply doesn't happen. It's got to be a blanket rule on that whole track. I understand there's some amazing dog owners and fully respect them, but sadly it's the ones that ignore those and carry on walking up the hill. So just making that point, it's really got to be a one-stop shop with that track. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelvin. That was totally inappropriate, but it was a point well made. Just to emphasise again that it's the panel members that need to ask questions and the staff and others that respond, no cross-examination. But anything else, Ferg? And from you, Heath, any questions of the staff?
No, I think I'm pretty comfortable. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Wicked. Though I will now ask for a resolution that we can exclude members of the public so we can deliberate with the decision and the recommendation. This is in accordance with Section 48 of the Local Government Act, 48(2)A. I will move that we move out of public, that we move into public excluded. Can I have a seconder, please?
Yeah, I will.
Seconded, Councillor Ferguson. All those in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Sweet, the motion is carried. So I would now respectfully thank the members of the public for attending this hearing. It will now be adjourned and we will, sorry, not adjourned, it will now be, what's the term? Put into recess and we'll enter into deliberations. Again, thank you for your time. And you will be notified of the decision in due course.
Thanks, everybody. We'll hear from you later. Bye.
Thanks, Vance.
Thanks,
Thanks, everyone.
Vince.
Okay.